This is Old Faithful Isle. Old Faithful Isle is located in a region known as the Wilds, an area in the northwest corner of the map. Old Faithful Isle is often regarded as the most hated island in Sea of Thieves. But why? Well, many believe this phenomenon to derive from Old Faithful's massive size, so early in the game, it's really hard to navigate it if you need to dig stuff up here. On the other hand, does this gargantuan island deserve all this hate? I don't think so. So join me as we discuss why everyone hates Old Faithful and why it's not as bad as you think. Before we jump in, here's some quick things you need to know about Old Faithful. Number 1, it's massive. The island is possibly the largest non-tall-tale island in the game, at least in terms of pure landmass. Blunder Valley rivals its size but might be a little bit tinier. It just dominates the horizon, with its key feature being a giant blob. What's worse is Old Faithful is also home to the highest point in the wilds, but we'll cover why that's pretty great a bit later. Number 2, it's really far north. Old Faithful has the added detriment of being a bit out of the way. It's one of the northmost islands on the map. Whilst not as remote as Sailor's Bounty or Marauder's Arch, it makes the journey there just a bit more tedious. Number 3, it's in the wilds. The wilds is often regarded as the least favourite region amongst players, maybe in competition with the Devil's Roar. It's grey, it's grimy, and is much less beautiful than the Shores of Plenty and the Ancient Isles. I would agree too. The Devil's Roar has the benefit of awesome eclipses and bright hues of orange and red to contrast with the ash-coloured landscape. Out of the 4 regions, it just isn't that appealing visually, but again, they all have their place. Let's start off by talking about the Gold Hoarder mission. Because I hate myself immensely, and for the sake of science, I decided to do one Gold Hoarder voyage at the island. It was one X marks the spot map and had 5 dig spots in total. And because I never do Gold Hoarder voyages and never go to Old Faithful, this may represent the experience of the average player. This is the key hate for Old Faithful Isle, with memes being spawned over the last 5 years purely because of this quest.
Acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man, we're lost.
No.
And you know what? It wasn't that bad. It only took me 30 minutes. And I know what you're going to say, a good portion of that was fighting some other players. These were new players. How did I know they were new? They were doing a voyage at Old Faithful. No experienced player would be making that mistake. So ignoring the time it took to sink them and relieve them of their vault loot, it was, let's say, 15 minutes for one island, plus 5 minutes or so to get the loot back to my ship. 20 minutes for one Gold Hoarder map is not great, and it netted me 3 Captain's chests and 2 Marauders chests, which is around 3k gold without any emissary value. So in effect, it's pretty shit having to dig up loot here. Other than the size, why is this so tedious? Essentially, the layout of Old Faithful is nauseating when looking at the map. Luckily, there is the ability to zoom in, which has alleviated frustrations by a decent margin. But still, the island is filled with cracks and crevices, with 2 camps, various peaks, and several beaches. The landmarks aren't very discernible either, with maybe some of the wood structures on the east side of the island being your best point of reference. At least, we can say that Old Faithful is pretty terrible to do Gold Hoarder quests at, but what else can you do at Old Faithful? The original Tall Tales have the option for Captain Greymarrow to spawn here, but the geography makes it really difficult to coax him to the beach for easy cannon kills. Again, it's probably the worst place to fight him. But at least, the fate of the Morning Star can cause you to end up here. The island takes ages to walk around because you can't sprint with the lantern out, and Kraken's Fall is much easier to navigate, so again, it's probably the worst. Hell, Old Faithful doesn't even have an Ashen Lord spawn at it. Really, there is no point coming here. So this far, it's really hard to defend Old Faithful. In that case, what is actually good about this island? The layout of the island means you have a very good view of the south and west sides of the horizon. Most of the time spent on the island will be at these high points. It turns out it's super useful for seeing approaching ships. Coupled with this, you can hide a galleon behind the island, so you have the element of surprise too. I saw the Swabbies from miles away and even saw their return. You don't even have to be near the top to benefit from the view. At the peak though, you have the highest point in the wilds. The view would be great if you weren't in fact in the wilds. In Season 5, Old Faithful was one of the large islands to receive new methods of traversal and some traps. In the case of the former, the main feature was a lift to allow players to reach the top of the island. This is activated with a pulley and uses these skeleton cages as lifts. I can't really complain about this one, it's pretty cool. One of the camps has a trap in it. It's very well hidden. If you come up to this arch here, you can see the spike log tucked away. Above it is a lever that activates the trap. I shit you not, this footage is genuinely me getting caught out. I thought I was slick trying to use it on an ocean crawler. Well, it goes ahead and mugs me off because the trap deactivates. until this happens. It's a good thing I wear dark trousers. The island does have some nice landmarks as well. It's one of the 2 islands in the wilds to have skeleton emplacements in it. The camps at the top are really unique and give vibes that there was a skeleton garrison here before. On the other hand, the east side of the island is really annoying. You often get 3 skeletons hitting you at the same time. Thankfully, they're not as accurate as at launch. The lower levels of the island are littered with big caves and valleys, with some remnants of past inhabitants. And you know what? As far as ranking against the other large islands in the wilds, it's pretty great. It's definitely better than... maybe... no, it's easily the worst island in the wilds. At least with other annoying islands like Plunder Valley, you have the beautiful landscape to look at, or at least the ancient statues. But with the wilds, it's just grey, green and dead. But you need contrast, and the biomes would be boring if they were all sunshine and palm trees. That's why I was against the wilds turning green with these verdant patches dotted around. Even as the most basic silhouette, Crooked Master's 3 peaks, Kraken's Fall is a giant mountain, Shipwreck Bay is a mess of spikes, Marauder's Arch is an arch, Old Faithful, it's a giant turd. So in that case, is Old Faithful hate justified? Absolutely, it's indefensible. If you're tasked with going to this island, don't go. It's tedious, it's ugly, and it was really hard to defend in this video, even for a little bit. I'd rather complete my Splashtail milestone than do another voyage at this island. I'm actually thankful the Swabbies broke up that voyage for me. Maybe one day, the meteors will return to the wilds and smash a giant crater in the middle of the island. One can only hope. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.